I'm on my feet. Before I call the next item of business, I want to make clear the expectation of conduct in the public galleries. The debating chamber is a place for MPs as elected representatives to debate important issues. The public are very welcome to watch proceedings in the House. They are not permitted to take part. An exception to this rule has been where speakers have allowed for waiata, following treaty settlements and other bills, the passing of which recognises a significant occasion. Free and unintimidated speech underpins our democracy and our parliamentary democracy. Members of Parliament must be able to debate issues without interruption from the public galleries. That becomes even more important when a bill before the House does not meet favour with all who are viewing its proceedings. Accordingly then, if anyone interrupts proceedings from the galleries, they will be removed and not permitted to return. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1. Point of order. Chloe Swarbrick.
Mr Speaker, I seek leave for the order of the day for the first reading of the Treaty of Waitangi Principles Bill be discharged.
Leave is sought. Is there any objection to that course of action?
Yes. No.
There appears to be objection. Point of order. The Hana Rawiri Mafi Clark.
Mr Speaker, we seek to move an urgent motion that Te Pāti Māori is granted an additional 5-minute speaking slot for the first reading of the Treaty Principles Bill. If enacted, this bill will have a devastating intergenerational impact on our mokopuna.
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There appears to be objection.
Principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill, first reading.
Mr Speaker, I present a legislative statement on the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill.
The legislative statement is published under the authority of the House and can be found on the parliamentary website. Point of order, Debbie Nauri-Wapaka.
Mr Speaker, according to Standing Order 116, matters subject to judicial decisions may not be referred to in any debate. Te Tiriti o Waitangi underpins the judicial system in Aotearoa, and therefore Te Tiriti o Waitangi and its principles are currently being adjudicated in all cases currently before the courts. It would be inappropriate to debate this matter until all of these court cases have been concluded.
Well, that would be an interesting proposition if it were realistic. It's not. Regardless of the status of the treaty, if you look at all sorts of other documents that support the constitution of or constitutional arrangements of New Zealand, then you could make the same case, and therefore all debate in the House on all matters would be suspended. The Honourable David Seymour.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, Debbie Nauru.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The member is in contempt of the House according to Standing Order 418H. He has provided a bill which contains false or misleading information in an attempt to erase the rights of tangata whenua and sell our resources to offshore interests.
Well, that would be a matter for the House to deal with, not for me to deal with by way of points of order.
Well, contempt of the House.
Contempt of the House is a matter that you are suggesting. I'm certainly not going to rule on it because this is a bill that has been through a process inside the various you'd say arrangements between parties before. In fact, there is a thing called the Legislative Committee to get here. The second thing is I'd make is that if you think there has been a contempt of the House, then you need to write to the Speaker in a timely fashion. The Honourable David Seymour.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I move that the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill be now read a first time. I nominate the Justice Committee to consider the bill. Mr Speaker, in 1975, this House passed the Treaty of Waitangi Act. That Act's preamble says that it was, quote, established to make recommendations on claims relating to the practical application of the principles of the treaty and, for that purpose, to determine its meaning and effect and whether certain matters are inconsistent with those principles, end quote. There was one big problem. Nowhere in the Treaty of Waitangi Act, and at no time since, has this Parliament said what those principles actually are. The democratically elected body of this Parliament has been silent. Nature abhors a vacuum, so Parliament's silence has been filled by various court-finding, tribunal reports and the government departments having a go at defining the principles. They've variously arrived at the Crown having a duty to partner with Māori, to protect Māori's self-determination, to consult and redress past wrongs. What all of these principles have in common is that they afford Māori different rights from other New Zealanders. And I know why that is. Lawyers, with their training, they can't help but see a contract, and their instinct tells them to interpret a contract instead of ask what is the best constitutional foundation for a country. Seeing the treaty as a, quote, partnership between races, as the Court of Appeal once said, does not work as a constitutional foundation for a country. The lawyers will defend their logic to the hilt, but there is one question they cannot answer. Where in the world is it a good idea to give citizens different rights based on ancestry? Where in the world has that approach been a success? Dividing people into tangata whenua, land people, and tangata tiriti, people here by dint of the treaty.
A point of order.
Point of order.
Debbie Nauru-Wapaka.
Reference 119 to sovereign. It is offensive, and members cannot make reference to the sovereign. We have our own sovereign as Māori. We have never ceded sovereignty. What the minister is doing is deliberately bringing in disrepute and making references to sovereignty of Māori.
No, look, I'm sorry. That's not a point of order that can stand against the cited point of order. It's quite clearly that I'm not going to go into the constitutional range. The standing order doesn't stand. The Honourable David Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, we can all think of examples where dividing people up by their race or religion has failed badly. It is the time for the body that posed that question in 1975 to say what those principles are. And the purpose of this bill is to break this Parliament's 49 years silence, to define the principles in law so it's crystal clear what the treaty means to modern New Zealanders. Section 6 is the core of the bill. It says the Treaty of Waitangi principles are as follows. Principle 1, the Executive Government of New Zealand has the full power to govern, and the Parliament of New Zealand has the full power to make laws in the best interest of everyone and in accordance with the rule of law and the maintenance of a free and democratic society. Principle 2, the Crown recognises and will respect and protect the rights that hapu and iwi Māori had under the Treaty of Waitangi, Te Tiriti o Waitangi, at the time they signed it. However, if those rights differ from the rights of everyone, subclause 1 applies only if those rights are agreed in the settlement of a historical treaty claim under the Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975.
A little bit of order, thank you very much.
Principle 3 says that everyone is equal before the law. Everyone is entitled without discrimination. The equal protection and the equal benefit of the law and the equal enjoyment of the same fundamental human rights. These principles are based on the 3 articles of Te Tiriti, the Māori text, or at least Professor Kāwharu's 1987 translation of it. I'd like to thank the officials at the Ministry of Justice, who I suspect don't all agree with this particular kaupapa, but have been scrupulous in their professionalism and shown what the public service in New Zealand can be. The bill has other important sections. Section 7 says the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi, and Section 6 must be used to interpret enactments. In other words, where there's a legal reference to the principles, this interpretation must be used. Section 8 says that the bill is not to apply to interpretation of the Treaty Settlement Act. In other words, treaty settlements are safe. Some people have said that the bill threatens treaty settlements. It does not, and there's no reason for anyone who's read the bill to say so anymore. Section 9 says nothing in this Act amends the text of the Treaty of Waitangi or Te Tiriti o Waitangi. Once again, many people have falsely claimed this bill rewrites the treaty. There's even those who campaign for toi tu te tiriti, or leave the treaty undisturbed. In black and white, this bill does not change the text of the treaty itself. What it does do is confirm the government has the right to govern New Zealand, and this Parliament has the right to make laws in the best interests of everyone. It commits to protecting the rights of everyone. And
sorry to interrupt the member, but this barrage, constant, has to stop. I'm actually hearing some of the comments that are being made, and if people think that they are in any way enlightening the debate, they are seriously deluded. So we'll have a very rare and reasonable comment only. The Honourable David Seymour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It commits to protecting the rights of everyone, including Māori, and upholding treaty settlements. It commits to give equal enjoyment of the same fundamental human rights to every single New Zealander. The challenge for people who oppose this bill is to explain why they are so opposed to those basic principles. The bill does something else, and that's the answer. It democratises the principles of the treaty. It gives everyone a say. The commencement clause says the principles of this bill only come into force if a majority vote for it to do so in referendum. And as I mentioned, the principles we know today have been created by a small number of New Zealanders, even though we all have to live within them. But if democracy means anything, it means each and every person has a say in how the rules we all live under are made. It is that democratisation of the treaty that is so important. The big change here is the idea that each person has a say on the rules they live under. Even people who are convinced this bill will not become law are determined to stop it being discussed, and that's why you hear so much outspoken criticism of it. They know that whether or not this bill becomes law in this term of Parliament, it's only a matter of time before its logic prevails. That's why they say kill the bill, because they can't kill the idea behind the bill, especially not the idea of each person who lives legally in this country having equal rights. Now, let me say, I recognise there are people in Te Ao Māori who do not trust the state, and with good reason. The mai, or the pain that's grown up over centuries, is real. Land taken, culture and language squashed, discrimination in public life. There are those who say this bill takes us back to the 1950s and earlier. I hear those who seek to stir up fear and division, saying this bill will strip people of their mana, their taonga and their reo. That is simply untrue. My mission in politics is to empower every person in every community to choose the life they want to live. It's at the core of my belief system. And funnily enough, it's the same belief system that drives many Māori activist movements. I believe that you should be empowered to do what you want with your land, to start your own school or your social service in your rohi, using tikanga Māori and Māori language.
Start again, it's not going to cost you time. What is it so hard? Why is it so hard just to listen to an argument before offering a rebuttal? Can't be too hard. Well, I'm not on my feet, so I'm not taking any action. I don't want to start using members' names here, but some of the calling out is ridiculous. The Honourable David Seymour, resume.
Mr. Speaker, in short, I believe in freedom under the law, and I believe that you have those rights because of being a human being, not because you have any particular ancestry. I believe that all New Zealanders deserve tino rangatiratanga, the right to flourish as you would like to live, because all human beings are alike in dignity. And thus the bill does not extinguish any right, it does not take from anyone, it reinforces the rights of the treaty as universal human rights. There are those who say that the treaty is necessary because there's still inequity between Māori and non-Māori, on average. And that is true if you view the world as groups of people and based on ancestry and you average them. But the truth is, each person is more than an average. We are thinking and valuing beings with challenges and choices and hopes and dreams. Many Māori do very well and need little help. Many non-Māori are struggling and in need of greater help. If you want to help people in need, skip the division and just help people in need, is what I say. There are those who may agree with the sentiment of the bill, but believe that there are other priorities. The simple answer is that this government has not been stopped by this bill. In fact, this minister has not been stopped by this bill from making massive progress in health and housing and economic growth and education. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. But more importantly, a system of equal rights is essential for solving the practical problems we face. A separate health administration, seats reserved at the table of public entities, the requirement to consult people on resource management decisions based on ancestry, all of it just makes the task of solving the very real problems we solve all the harder than if we join hands in common humanity against the challenges we seek to overcome. The division that you are seeing was not caused by this bill. It's been built up over decades during which New Zealanders have come to regard themselves as based on ancestry or one side of a partnership instead of New Zealanders. And what's worse, successive governments have encouraged that division. The division is there whether this bill is here to reveal it or not, and we cannot afford to ignore it any longer. In summary, Mr. Speaker, the principles of the Treaty of Waitangi Bill fills a silence this Parliament has left for 5 decades. In so doing, it affirms the basis of our country. It is not division. Treaties are supposed to unite people, not divide them. We are fortunate that our country was founded by a voluntary agreement giving ngā tikanga katoa rite tahi, or equal rights to all. And for affirming and celebrating that wonderful inheritance, I commend this bill to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker.
The Honourable Willie Jackson.
Mr. Speaker, shame on you, David Seymour. Shame on you for what you're trying to do to this nation in introducing this Treaty Principles Bill. Ngāti Rehia will be ashamed that one of their sons has come up with a political stunt that looks to divide the nation and the partnership that we've been trying to get right, Mr. Speaker, since the most preeminent jurist in New Zealand history, Lord Cook, made that historic declaration of partnership in 1987. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to rewrite the treaty. David Seymour wants to turn over 50 years of our understanding of treaty principles and partnership. The principles are clear, Mr. Speaker. They're clear. They're about partnership. They're about equity. They're about active protection. And they're about redress. Simple. Why does this offend this minister so much? This bill seeks to give Māori rights and Indigenous rights to everyone. And there's no doubt that Mr. Seymour wants to totally change the treaty, Mr. Speaker, as we know it. That's the view of the best legal minds in the country, the King's Council, who have said, abandon this bill. The Waitangi Tribunal, who have said, by engaging with this process, the Crown was sanctioning a process that will take away Indigenous rights. And in fact, there's the view of Crown law, the government's own lawyers. That's right. The government's own lawyers, Mr. Speaker, who have said that this bill will undermine Māori rights, but still David Seymour persists with this disgusting piece of legislation. I said some time ago that he was the most dangerous politician in New Zealand, and that has come to pass. Mr. Speaker, I'm a Labour Party member, but I'm also a proud Māori and New Zealander. And I denounce this foul attempt to rewrite the constitutional framework of this nation simply because the Prime Minister is too weak to stop the dangerous extremism of the ACT Party. The party of Doug Graham, the party of Chris Finlayson, Jim Bolger, Jenny Shipley, none of those people would have been played the way the Prime Minister has been played, Mr. Speaker.
That is the last time there is to be any outburst from the gallery. And that is the last time we're to hear a personal reflection of that nature in today's speeches. The Honourable Willie Jackson.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister claims this is MMP and his hands are tied. But he chose, Mr. Speaker, to sell Māori down the river and chose to throw all our shared work out just so he could be Prime Minister. Every single National Party member should be ashamed at the cowardice shown by the Prime Minister and this party. By introducing the bill, National Jackson, are letting Māoridom down.
Think about what you're saying.
Oh, I have very much, Mr. Speaker, but thank you for that.
I know, but not very clearly, obviously.
Oh, well, that's your view, Mr. Speaker. Thank you for that.
Sorry to interrupt you, but don't go down that track.
Okay. By introducing the bill, though, sir, National are allowing David Seymour to launch a 6-month hate tour.
That's right.
He's using that 6-month hate tour to launch a citizen-initiated referendum to fight the National Party in 1996. The minister's vanity treaty principles bill will cost us $4 million, Mr. Speaker. $4 million at a time when we've got a cost of living going through the roof. I'm telling Mr. Seymour, Mr. Speaker, and some of the National Party members that who are enabling this, that MāOreTim will never accept our redefining of the relationship with the Crown. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. We will march and hikoi for our rights. Mo ake. Mr. Speaker, this minister has purposely allowed misinformation to replace the true nature of the relationship from the Māori chiefs and Crown and sold that criticism as equality. He is not standing up for democracy. He is using and abusing democracy against my people, against your people. How dare you, David Seymour? Mr. Speaker, yesterday I was on a hikoi. I was so proud to be on that hikoi with our political colleagues, Māori Party, Green Party, wonderful. Asians, Māori, Pacifica were all there. They gave me a clear message, Mr. Speaker, and I agreed to give that message here today. This is to you, David Seymour. You fuel hatred and misinformation in this country. You bring out the worst in New Zealanders. You should be ashamed of yourself, and you are a liar.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
It's all right. I'm about to rule.
Okay.
Withdraw and apologise for that last statement.
No, I can't do that.
Willie Jackson, I'm asking you to withdraw and apologise for your last statement. And Willie Jackson, are you not going to withdraw for saying something so blatantly unparliamentary as that? It doesn't matter who it came from. You used the term in the House. You made the accusation in the House. Withdraw and apologise. All right, then I'm going to have to ask the member to withdraw himself from the House for the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah, whichever. Got it.
Thank you, Willow.
Yeah,